Hey everyone. So I have talked about animation before a lot. I've talked a lot about animation. I've said a lot of stuff about it, how I love Pixar, how I love whatever anime movies I enjoy. Have I talked about it enough though? I don't think so. I think I do need to talk a little more about what I like about animation. I've talked a lot about movies that recently came out that were animated, but what I need to talk more about is the overall variety of animated films out there. So you know what I need to do? I need to look back at the version of animation that I haven't talked a lot about, 2D animation. I think 2D animation deserves all the credit for most of us, mainly because we don't see it anymore. But yes, I do like 2D animation. It made it seem like because I love Pixar so much, or I love a lot of newer 3D animated films that come out, a lot of you thought, well, I guess this guy really hates 2D animation then. That's not true. I will admit, I do sort of have a more enjoyment for 3D animation. I don't know. But at the same time, while I do prefer 3D animation in terms of, which anime movies I see, 2D animation is worth praising too. It's traditional animation. It's the style that started it all. We started by using a pencil and, we actually drew things to come to life. That's pretty awesome. Eventually, of course, they started animating with computers, but still making it 2D animated in a way. It is a good style. I have seen a lot of 2D animated films that I do love, and the style is great and all. So, to show you all that I'm not against traditional animation, I'm going to share with you all a list of my personal favorite animated movies that are 2D animated. Unfortunately, when putting this list together, a lot of these entries on this list are ones that do use computers quite a lot. So even if these aren't 100% drawn animated, they are 2D animated films. And they show that I have seen a bunch of traditionally animated films. Even though I've seen more 3D animated films, there are still a bunch of traditionally animated ones I've seen. And animation is a fun style for film, and I honestly admire it a lot. So to show you all that I do admire all types of animation, let's go ahead and review my personal favorites from the defunct form.
Alright, so here's a funny choice. SpongeBob is pretty obviously well known by every person in the universe. It's a household cartoon name. It's been around for about 25 years and it really has left a reputation on a lot of us Gen Z kids. And I happen to be one of them. Yes, I was obsessed with SpongeBob as a child. I watched it 24/7. Even nowadays, I don't watch it as much, but I still respect the ones I grew up with. I know it is kind of running its course too much, and yeah, they really need to stop with it, but for what it's worth, for its golden age, the first 3 seasons, or even first 5 seasons, that's when I can say the show really was great. But how about the movie? It's also pretty great. This came out around after season 3, and as a lot of us fans know, it was supposed to be the one where the series would finally end off, but nah, that money. Anyway, yes, this movie is pretty great. It's got all that classic show humor and all the characters are here. We got some new characters. We got some exciting bits. It's obviously something made for the fans. If you're not a fan of the show, your opinion on it may be different. But let's talk about it from an animation perspective. In terms of bringing a cartoon to the big screen, I think one thing everyone likes to notice doing is adding shadows to the characters, trying to make them feel more alive and cinematic by creating shadows for them so that you can really feel more cinematic approach to it. You also got to up the budget. You got to have CGI added in maybe. Although I am thankful this movie doesn't have a lot of that. They don't CGI this movie too much, unlike its successors. They just keep it at the same 2D art style, while of course still advancing it with the characters looking pretty different. They're brighter. The environment's brighter, and they even of course do that awesome thing of crossing live action and animation. I love it when movies do that. So yeah, seeing them do that in this movie was a pretty cool idea. So yeah, this movie It's funny, it's hilarious. It's got a nice story for the show's manner, and animation wise, I do like how much it improved itself from the original cartoon. It looks brighter, it's cuter, it's a very nice, satisfying looking film. That's kind of the best way to describe it. It's a very ASMR type of animation. Just watching this movie, like the vibe, the colors, it's all so satisfying. And now we're on to another silly comedy. This one from Disney. They're all about 2D animation, so yeah, expect a lot of those on this list. But here we're starting off with their most hilarious work, Emperor's New Groove. I'm sure if you're a Disney fanatic, you know and love this film. It's pretty fun, yeah. It's obviously supposed to be Disney's, I guess, least serious animated film they've done, though then again, they've probably done something else that's even less serious that I just haven't seen. But it is the funniest one they've done, I'll say that. The film's got a lot of funny moments involving our douchebag protagonists, and of course, the amazing villain duo that steals the show as expected. We all know them. That duo is hilarious as ever. They're pretty much what makes this movie a ton of fun to watch. But how about the animation? That's kind of what this list is about. How does it look to the animation wise? Well, I was impressed with how little CGI there is in this film. This came out during a time when Disney really was experimenting with having CGI in their animated films. Because we remember this came out in the year 2000. It was after the Disney Renaissance. And during the Disney Renaissance, there were a lot of 2D animated films, but just about all of them tried to implement as much 3D animation as possible to their mix to kind of create a diverse crowd of animation. As 90s was, of course, when everyone was experimenting with 3D animation. In Emperor's New Groove, I was impressed with how little they did. There was a little bit at times, but for the most part, they still kept it in a nice, simple, clean pattern. Which is probably why the film bombed at the box office, but come on, it's funny. It's a great film. I think the I think like SpongeBob, it's very bright and cute. I mean, the characters all are designed pretty fun. I think the human designs are pretty cute and admirable. I like all again the bright colors are always good. Just kind of when it comes to making the 2D animated film, I'm always into the brightness. That's kind of where it comes from. People are all about how a movie can be when it's dark, but for me, if I'm gonna enjoy something 2D animated, I like to have brightness with it. And yeah, Emperor's New Groove proves to be very well nice and bright. All the characters are cutely designed. There's a lot of we also of course see these characters as animal. Like the whole idea is about him turning into a llama, so him being a llama through pretty much the majority of the film does make for some more funny moments. And the llama design for him is pretty nice. It's a nice Disney look to it. That's kind of what I like about this movie. All the animals and humans it creates do give you that vibe that it comes from Disney, but at the same time, do still look different compared to other Disney films. All right, now we're on to good old DreamWorks. This happens to be, in fact, the most recent 2D animated film I have seen out of the bunch. That's right. While I have talked a lot about DreamWorks and how I love their animation studio as part of my childhood, that's with the 3D animation lot. Because, yeah, ever since DreamWorks became a competitor with Pixar, I guess when Shrek came out, they were all for just making as many more fun 3D animated films as possible. But what one thing a lot of us forget is that they weren't about that before Shrek. They were still making different types of animated films, not just CG animated. Yes, DreamWorks actually made 2D animated films back in the late 90s when they first started. And this was arguably their best 2D animated film ever. And in my opinion, it's one of their best films, period. Prince of Egypt is like a masterpiece. I just watched it this year when it was Easter time because, I've talked about how I like to celebrate Easter the right way by looking at it through the story of the Bible, whatever stories come from the Bible. Instead of being all like, ooh, hopping Easter bunnies, cute candy eggs, Russell Brand is a bunny. No, this time I was interested in actually learning more stories from the Bible and the film adaptations their work that came from them. So I have already seen the Ten Commandments from the 50s. And I figured I heard there were a bunch of other films that took that story too. So I found this one, the one that I somehow haven't seen yet. Boy, was I missing out. The film has amazing songs. The cast is great. There's a big celebrity cast, but they all do their voices really well. The story works damn amazingly. I mean, they really do make sure they keep the story as faithful as possible, while also still making sure it's that nice center of being appropriate for kids to watch. And they do an amazing job with that. But now let's talk about the animation. It's awesome. It pretty much matches the Disney Renaissance style near perfectly. I mean, it blends a ton of great visuals with the animation, kind of showing off Egyptian landmarks and sort of the even showing off the human designs for the country. Because every human in this movie does look different compared to your everyday Disney character. And you can argue that it's not, some of them aren't the most cutely animated, but in my opinion, it works for the story. Okay, I'm not saying that all Egyptians look ugly. I'm definitely not saying that. But I am saying that there does need to be a distinctive look with these characters because I know a lot of Disney films are supposed to take place in different parts of the country, but yet they still design the characters like they're from our country. Take, I don't know, some of their newer CGI films, for example. They design the cast of Frozen like they come from America, when the whole movie's supposed to be set in, like, I think Norway or something. Well, with this movie, they make sure we know what country this film is in by showing us how the characters look, how the environments look. They may all speak English and sing songs, but they are committed to their country and to time period too. They really make sure this film stays with its time period as well. While it's not as bright as the previous films I talked about, it is vibrant. We see there's a lot of water in this film. The water is animated amazingly, so props for DreamWorks for doing such a fantastic job at animating water. That's something that's not easy, I feel like. And I also love how every CGI moment that is in this film is blended really well. You know, I mean, Disney does a great job at blending CGI, but there are times where it can be a little distracting in the environment. I do know some of their more newer Disney Renaissance films where they try to blend free animation. It ends up just coming off as ooh CGI cool or whatever. And it doesn't really match with the 2D animation environments. But in this case, it does. I mean, like I really think this movie doesn't use as much CGI, but when it does, it matches with the environments perfectly. So that's a plus. I really have a lot to say about this film, mainly because it's the most recent one I've watched. So I'll try to save my discussions for later, as I'm sure I'll have to bring this movie up again in other lists. But for now, might I say, I'm so glad I saw this movie, though I wish I saw it earlier because it is a masterpiece that I just mistook. All right, now let's go ahead and look at an even further classic. The one from the 60s, 101 Dalmatians. This film is older, so naturally there's not as much or any CGI in it. But there is another thing to it that actually does make it a very unique animated film for its time. I don't exactly remember what it's called, but this movie actually creates live action illustrations in part of its scenes. Like I remember, I learned a lot about this movie's car chase scenes, including illustrations from live action setting that kind of made more realistic environments and was cinematically impressive for the time. Again, I don't know exactly what it's called, like what the style art is called, or if I'm even calling that right, but I do know it is what made some of the outdoor environments look so alive and real, even though it's all we know it's animated. I mean, I think that's probably a big plus for this movie, especially for how old it was. It was able to create real environments in an animated adventure despite not using any CGI at all. The story is pretty cute. You know, we got these two dogs who fall in love with each other, and then they, of course, have 101 kids, which realistically makes no sense, but for Disney's case, sure, it makes sense. And they got to survive from a killer chick who wants to skin them and all. You get the story. You know what it is. But the story is not the focus of this list. The focus is how I think of the animation. So I'll try to keep it at that.
It's cute. Okay, this might be one of the cutest looking animated films on the list. We see a lot from these dogs. All of them have sort of the same art style, but their faces are designed differently. And you gotta admire how great that is. Each dog in this film actually does have their own different look. You can argue that there could be some that are the same drawn, but for the most part, you are able to tear apart some of the main ones. You know, it's not easy to get 101 stars in one film. So it makes sense why they can't have animated all 101 of them to look 100% different to where you can look at all of them as a separate character. But they do give focus on some of them, and the ones they do give focus on do have unique looks. They're all the same breed, but their faces are different, and I will say, I do think that these dogs just make for such a fun, adorable film. And it's a film about a crazy lady, so I gotta take it seriously because while I know it can't possibly be the case, there could be someone that dies. But anyway, yes, it's just got that fun classic Disney feel. I don't know if I've told you this all before, but I'm not one who's usually for binging too far of films. I'm not against older films. It's just I like to see a lot of types of movies, so I usually just pick ones that I choose to ignore when I go on a binge fest, and one of those ignores includes films before the '60s. So in terms of movies I like to binge and rate, this is the oldest Disney one, and it certainly holds up really well because to this day it still is very cute, beautiful, and yeah, the outdoor settings are really well done. Okay, so arguably you can say that this shouldn't count because it is live action. Okay, but the thing is, what I noticed about this film, it's actually really 50-50. Yeah, the film really is half cartoon, half live action. Like it actually is half and half. It's not one of those. It's not like Mary Poppins where it's mostly a live action film and you can only see the animated parts from one scene or whatever. This film actually separates the live action and the animation and pretty much puts both of them in one world. Who Framed Roger Rabbit is, in a short sense, revolutionary. While we have seen the idea of crossing over live action and animation before, this film was able to again put half and half together into one big film where we could see them interact with each other flawlessly. It was incredible how every human and then cartoon character were able to interact with each other in such a realistic way. I mean, films like Mary Poppins or Space Jam, they do fine with crossing over their humans and cartoons, but this film actually gives the cartoon characters and the humans real, genuine um impressions. Like when the cartoon characters are there, you feel they're there. I think everyone's already talked about that before, and I just want to say I agree. I was impressed, you know. I was all for the idea of cartoons crossing over with animation in live action. But at the same time, I also found it to be quite creepy. And it was something that I kind of would hope to see done in a more real sense. And that's exactly how this movie worked. The characters are, of course, animated, but at the same time, they blend in with the live action world amazingly that it's great. I think all the effort that went into this movie deserves to be kept farther in. I'm just repeating things other people have said. I love the dynamic. I also love the idea that of having all the human characters be as serious as possible. Because I have heard that actors like Bob Hoskins as the main detective, he isn't a silly comedic detective. He's a serious man. He's like a serious man has a problem with cartoons. So in this whole movie, he's not someone you're supposed to be like, he's funny SNL guy or whatever. No, you actually know he's a serious man who interacts with these otherwise silly comedic cartoon characters. There's also Christopher Lloyd as the villain. He plays it silly, but we do find out later that I don't, yeah, we find out later that he is. So yeah, that works really well too. It's just the idea that they can make crossing live action animation feel so real to the point where I actually could believe that this is something that could exist after watching the film. I think I actually do remember after I saw this movie, I was really under belief that maybe animation can coexist in our world. Be cool, wouldn't it? I don't know, maybe. I mean, I don't know, but just wow. Okay, and the animation on each character is great too. They all have the shadows inside them instead of there being shadows like reflecting them. They put shadows on them, and that's impressive. The amount of animation they put, the smooth frames they got with each character, like Roger as well as Jessica Rabbit. Yeah, they didn't need to they did not need to animate her so smoothly, but because they did, it's caused something going on with all of us. It seemed to bring out the older in all of us kids. Probably not something I want to talk about too much, but anyway, yeah, I think it's because of the smooth animation that made that possible. Roger Rabbit, is also animated amazingly, and they even throw in a bunch of other cartoon characters, existing cartoon characters. We got Mickey Mouse, Bugs Bunny. Yes, the Looney Tunes and the Disney crew actually interact with each other. That is also legendary. This movie is just so rewatchable. Okay, I think it's one of the most rewatchable anime movies ever in my book. All right, now on to more Disney stuff. Yeah, like I said, it's gonna take up the list. Mulan is um also really bright and colorful. As like I said, that's what I like seeing in 2D animated films. The brightness, however, does come from a more violent sense. I'm not saying this movie is super violent to the point where your kids probably shouldn't watch it. There's no blood or anything. I mean, there is small blood, but there isn't like that dangerous, violent blood that makes you think, wow, I shouldn't be watching this. But no, it's a war film. It's an action film involving, a Chinese martial arts group who have to save their country and all. The whole story, of course, involves around one chick who turns herself into a man to try and become part of the. Let's just talk about the animation. I took real silence there. I want to explain the plot without being too confusing, but that's not easy for me. This film, again, is all bright and colorful. And it's also impressive how, again, the CGI doesn't interfere too much. There is CGI moments in the film, but unlike their earlier films, this time they don't overstimulate it. They keep it in a good center and still keep the focus on the 2D animation. Because again, every character is designed to their culture. I talked about this with Prince of Egypt, how it made that movie amazing. But I think it also applies greatly with this movie too. Because this movie also animates every character to actually match their setting. It doesn't do that old route of being like, all right, so we have an American audience, let's Americanize these characters for them. No, it actually designs them to look to their culture. They may speak English, which is weird, but at the same time, they do look like where they belong. So, I think in terms of animating characters to fit where the movie's supposed to take place, it was impressive to see that this time. It's beautifully done. The bright colors are nice. All the action involving, I don't know, the explosions. The explosions, I think, is the highlight of this movie in terms of animation. There's a lot of explosions in this film, and they're all animated really well. There's a lot of great swordplay, martial arts movements. All that's animated greatly. I just think this movie has a very satisfying movement with its animation. It's just so vibrant and so lots of great explosions, lots of great bright outdoor landscapes. I think the bright outdoor landscapes and the explosions are the prime examples of what makes this movie so beautifully animated. Need I say more? The Simpsons movie. Okay. It's bright. That's where it's coming from. And I think it is the perfect example of animating a TV show onto the big screen. There have been a lot of cases of famous cartoons coming to the big screen. And in my opinion, the best example of it in terms of how they animate it is with The Simpsons. The Simpsons, of course, is the longest running cartoon series ever to this day. It's ran for so long, it's become a worldwide phenomenon for cartoons. And again, it ran its course. I pretty much gave up on it ever since season 10. But for that time, it was great. So yeah, even though it's getting annoying now, for what it was, The Simpsons was great. And so naturally, it makes sense you want to put them on the big screen. Although they did put them on the big screen at kind of a late time. I mean, this was during season 19, so you think the fans would watch it? Now, of course we would. We always have wanted to see The Simpsons come to the big screen. And yes, it pulled off really well. The movie is, of course, great because it brings back all that fun comedy that made the first 9 seasons so memorable. It also tells a great, fun story that actually kind of brings the environment into the mix, kind of telling us that, we have to protect our um, Earth. Otherwise, mass destruction, rioting, looting, a dome, all that stuff could happen. But of course, I must say, like I said, in terms of animated movies being adapted into the big screen, this movie illustrates it the best. It doesn't overstimulate with CGI. It only uses CGI when it knows the right time is. It gives each character the same look they have in the show, with more shadows, of course, more 3D environments to walk towards, and it just really does that really well. It's not the most technologically advanced in terms of these cases, but the brightness, the shadows, the CG additions, the landscapes, all of that is perfected here. So yeah, I think that's why I put the Simpsons movies so low on the list, because out of every cartoon film adaptation there is, this one is the best in terms of upping the animation style, improving the show's style to the big screen. This film just does it the best, in my opinion. It was able to really capture that look of what made the show look so unique, while also making sure that moviegoers will admire it. So yeah, Simpsons movie is amazing for that. All right, more Disney. The whole list is Disney, pretty much. I think only like two non-Disney films were on here. But anyway, Aladdin. This movie pretty much speaks for itself. Well, I did talk a lot on this list about how great it was to see some films not overstimulate CGI, and this movie does have some CGI in it. I was talking more about the later Renaissance films, the early Renaissance films from the night from like 1989 through 1995. These films did great with this. This film, for example, I think really does a great job with its animation. There's only CGI moments like once or twice in the whole film, and they both don't almost overstimulate themselves, so I can approve of that. It's beautiful, it's bright, it's colorful. Every character, again, well, okay, maybe not perfectly. I guess it was a little flawed in the case. Uh, I was gonna say every character does match the setting they're in, though that isn't really the case for every character. I think that's really only the case for our main characters, Aladdin, Jasmine, and Jafar. Maybe I don't know. I guess that's kind of really about it in terms of character designs there. But at the same time, they are still very fun designs. They design these characters to look the way they're supposed to. They design one to look like the sort of corrupted teenage street rat he's supposed to be. They make sure one is this up forward, pretty princess that she's supposed to be, and they make sure one is as creepy and unsettling of a enchanter as you can imagine. But of course, all that magic that makes this film memorable is with the genie. He's a fun genie. I could talk a lot about how Robin Williams' genie is memorable and iconic, but this whole list is supposed to be about animation. And animation wise, yes, he looks great. They've animated him so fast. He moves fast. He does a lot of fast references, and I think the fact that he's animated this in this much speed really does cement good. In fact, I think that's probably the best word to describe this movie's animation and what makes it so amazing. The speed. The speed of it all is amazing, impressive. I know it's done with computers, so you could argue, well, okay, they're not hand drawing, so it's not that impressive. It still is pretty impressive with how fast the characters can move and how the whole film's able to kind of run in this nice fast speed while also still keeping a cohesive runtime. It's fast, but not too fast. That's the best way to describe it. It's bright, but not too bright. When it has to be dark, they make sure it looks dark, but not too dark so we can see things. Yeah, this film balances darkness, brightness, and fast pacing really well. And that's why I put it so well here. Same with Beauty and the Beast. Yes, this movie is a whole lot better in many ways. I've grown to adore this movie more and more. As a child, I was amazed with it. It was the one film I didn't mind obsessing over. I was, when we were young childs, we were just like, ooh, girl movies, ugh. But me, I had no problem dressing up as Belle because of how much I love this movie. No joke, I actually was dressing up as Belle when as my childhood because I was familiar with this film and I loved it so much that actually is what I did. I am a cross gesture confirmed. Anyway, the animation. My god, could I not be more satisfied? This is probably one of the cutest animated films ever. Every character looks so well drawn. The costumes are great. The animation colors are beautiful. This film's just got really nice bright colors, nice dark tone to it. It's just that one film that just looking at pictures of gives me a nice warm comfort. It's a comfort film with such nice beautiful colors in it. It's beautiful to just look at through frames. The fact that I can adore this movie's animation just through pictures says a lot about what makes it so well put together in its animation department. I mean, there's of course that iconic ballroom scene that pro CGI in the mix, and we all agree that that was pretty amazingly impressive, and it is. But again, just looking at it through shots is enough to really feel satisfying to me. This might actually be the most ASMR animated film I've ever seen, at least in terms of 2D animation. I guess I can't say the same when it comes to 3D animation, but in terms of 2D animated films, yes, even the CGI in the ballroom counts to the mix. This film is probably the most satisfying, in my opinion. It's the most ASMR looking in all. But why isn't it number one? Well, while Beauty and the Beast is the most satisfying looking, The Lion King is the most impressive in general. Honestly, I kind of had a hard time picking between the two. I was pretty much just going to put both of them at number one. But I chose The Lion King's because it is brighter. I will say that. It is brighter. It does um, use CGI less, which, I guess kind of relates to the idea of this list. And in general, I do think the movie is slightly better in general. So yeah, both movies do deserve the number one spot equally, but I think The Lion King also is very beautiful and satisfying looking. But in the case more so of watching the film, it's the animal designs that are cute. It's the environments that are really stellar to look at. It's a perfect brightness that just, oh man, it amazes me for its time. I don't know if it's just because of the HD transfers this film has gotten, but my god, for 1990s, it's amazing how bright and colorful this movie is. I think that's probably the best reason I put it higher. It's more colorful. Beauty and the Beast is more satisfying looking, but this film is a lot more colorful. And because of how many colors are there, how many more characters we see, I think that's kind of just what makes the film, I don't know, all the more beautiful in general. So yeah, it was between which one was the most satisfying looking and which one was the most colorful looking. So I had to go with the most colorful looking, and that's this film. My god, is it colorful and beautiful in its story too. It's a story that longs for days of a king whose son has to face facts that his father was killed, but he has to go through the circle of life and learn to overcome the fears and try to save his make sure that the know that the importance is about saving his kind and his world or kind of trying to make sure he can still earn his father's respect by not um, running away from his problems or whatever. I'm describing this movie like I haven't seen it. Trust me, I have. Okay, I'm just not in the mood to explain the plot right now. My focus is on the animation. It's colorful as hell. So that's all I have to say. The most colorful anime movie ever, maybe even compared to CG animated films too. It's just so damn colorful, man. I can't stop looking at it now.